It seems to me this whole accommodate or confront thing that you've got going on here really is, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in terms of when you look at how it is that as individuals we, generally speaking, engage with each other in real life. And that is to say that by and large, we strive to be courteous sorts of individuals because we understand the significance, the importance of, like Aaron Ra had mentioned earlier, this sort of communal aspect of our society. Given that's the case, I think that it's far more beneficial for us to engage with people who are our opponents, not through the use of ridicule and mockery endlessly, but rather through striving to build meaningful relationships with them in which we are in continual discourse with them, because there's a sense of humility and that we can hope to somehow learn something of their perspective, albeit think of their perspective in some fashion as being completely absurd even.
What's your goal when you engage with people, Jack? What are you hoping to achieve?
Most of the conversations that I've had over the past 5 years since I've been on YouTube has been for the purposes of achieving a deeper understanding not only of the individual's perspective and where they're coming from, but also in some ways to incorporate a new scope of language, if this makes sense, a new understanding of how people experience their life and see how it relates to my experience of life and the beliefs as I hold them. And what I find is the more I engage with people that are opponents of mine, that is to say people who hold contrary beliefs to my own, the more that I honestly feel as though my life is enriched. So by and large, the friends that I have who are not Christian, I have found that my engagement with them has been deeply enriching in my own life in terms of how I go about.
Give us an example of how you've been enriched.
There are a set of people that have been that have enriched my life tremendously from YouTube. One of them is called Ben Caruth from YouTube. Another one is Adrianoch from YouTube. Meridian Frost from YouTube. These are people that several years ago I met with them on Stickam, and we talked about religion and philosophy. And it was through the give and take of conversation that I was able to acquire a greater understanding of philosophy and a greater perspective on the diversity of ways in which we can look at our life and existence. And as such, it helped equip me to sort of figure out where Christianity sort of fit into my life and how I go about expressing Christianity to others. And really, most importantly, it helped me to see that it's not just about some sort of proposition out here somewhere. These are actually people. And when we start engaging with people in their beliefs, what we realize is it's far more nuanced and complex than we generally like to present when speaking of it in an abstraction.
Concordance.
I agree for the most part with what you're saying. I have run across some very irrational atheists. I felt like needed to really think about why they think the things they think. Even if I agree with their conclusions, I dislike so strongly the kinds of things that get them there. And I've met some very rational Christians, and I don't want to focus just on the things that between us differ. The conclusions that we reach that are different. I'm, again, much more interested in, can we all learn to think, to get along, to be tolerant of each other, where things are different, up to the point where your beliefs begin to affect me. I think we have a problem. If we can sit down and have a meaningful, useful discussion about what I believe and what you believe, maybe I can persuade you. Maybe you can persuade me. I think that we need to be open to that. Coming at the conversation as I'm here to educate you about why you're so ignorant and stupid, I think instantly you've lost the dialogue. And if that's your ultimate goal, is to get a kind of a shouting match going, that's the right approach to use. But if your goal really is dialogue, where do we agree, where do we disagree, and why, then I think ridicule is the wrong approach.
Well, I'm kind of impressed that I just listened to Together for Peace talk for a good 3-4 minutes straight, and I didn't disagree with anything he said.
Well, that's because the things he said are things that I don't think anyone could disagree with in theory, but in practice, the conversations, at least between theists and atheists, just don't play out in this kind of a sensible fashion. Now, Jack, what's the application of the theory that you just that I just said? I agree with you in theory. In practice, what is the actual advice you would give for atheists interacting with theists?
From my experience, the advice that I would give for all people, not just atheists, but theists as well, is have meaningful, courteous relationships with people you disagree with, in which you have ongoing discussions regarding these matters in such a way that, because it's the dimension, like Aaron Ra had pointed out, we are communal beings, and it's that dimension of being communal and living with each other that as we experience existence together, we begin to understand the complexity that these things are not just merely these sort of abstract beliefs out here, but we want to see how they actually play out in our everyday lives. And when we begin to interact with other people who hold opposing views to our own, then it sort of helps us to see that these aren't just merely ideas out here. These are actually things being played out in our lives. And we begin to, if we are engaged in those meaningful relationships with each other, which can, at some level, of course, include aspects of, I just think your ideas, saying things like, I think your beliefs are stupid, but nonetheless, we can still engage in discussing about those beliefs. And
can I interject something, please?
Of course.
Well, I mean, obviously, when we talk about this, since we're on either side of the atheist-theist issue, we immediately think of the atheist versus theist debate. But do you apply the principles that you just talked about in your discussions with people of other religions?
I strive to. I strive to in an imperfect way. There have been occasions when certainly, because each individual is different, that each conversation brings with it its own unique challenges, because, of course, different personality, it's not really so much about the difference of beliefs as much as it's the difference of personality and the different skill sets that people bring in terms of their ability to actually communicate and listen to opposing beliefs. So to me, it's not so much about the fact that we have opposing beliefs. It's much more about the individuals coming together for the conversation. And the reason, and I say this because there are countless people that are really good friends of mine that have enriched my life who are atheists. And these are meaningful relationships I have. And so I know that it's not that, and so yes, to answer your question, I strive to do this imperfectly. It is challenging to do at times. But that's why I try to be on Blog TV. I try to entertain discussions with individuals. And it's not just a one-time deal. That's the thing. Discussion and relationship occurs over years. For example, my friendship with Meridian Frost, along with other atheists as well, initially was very challenging, was very rough. But when we got past some of those things and we pushed through the challenges and we were like, yeah, we agree to disagree, we were able to become friends. And then begin to understand each other in a more significant way that really helped us to be like, okay, we get each other now, and I just think it's a beautiful thing.
Was it a beautiful thing when the prophet Elijah had the priests of Baal led down to the river and slaughtered? I mean, was that a meaningful, courteous exchange between them? We know it wasn't an ongoing exchange because the priests of Baal were all killed.
Yeah, see, there's part of the problem. See, I have to jump in at this moment. I mean, I work with someone who is a devoutly religious fundamentalist preacher, a minister, and I have enormous respect for the man. He and I see the world with equal awe for completely different reasons. I am impressed. He's impressed. The reasons are totally different, but we both share the same sensation of beauty of what we look at. I like everything about this guy except what he believes. Now, he is, in my perspective, he is an exemplary Christian. I most of the Christians whom I met, when they start getting into their beliefs or the importance of their beliefs in their lives, there's usually a correlation to some prejudice, some hatred of gays, for example, or some racist stigma, or some similar sort of bigotry. Not so with this guy. Fortunately, the things that he believes do not ever become relevant in anything that he or I have to do. So there's no interaction between us that gets that way, except on one occasion, my granddaughter was in the hospital for a second round of leukemia, and he said he was going to pray for her, and I said, do me a favor, don't, because the prayers, I've noticed, do not work until the chemo starts flowing. You know, and that was the closest we came to a confrontation on that aspect. And we let the conversation go after that. And he says, well, I'm going to pray for you anyway. Okay, fine, whatever. I didn't bother to throw in the supplemental thing. But for religion, it is an honest statement to make. Why is there a double standard? And then I want us to be on the same standard.
Yeah, you know, I think having that conversation is... Obviously, Aaron Raw, we have differences of belief. So when he says there's a double standard, and I'm saying, well, there isn't a double standard, of course, what's happening here is, to that doctor, to him, God is very real. And so, of course, it's understandable in hearing Aaron Raw speak that to Aaron Raw, there's a double standard. But I think if Aaron Raw was to say, well, granted his perspective, I understand that he's not intentionally trying to push forth some sort of double standard. Rather, within his perspective of life and existence, this isn't a double standard. This is actually just an expression of him conveying, really, that he cares for my daughter. And beyond him just being the best doctor that he can be, this individual, given these truths he holds as a Christian, believes that another way to possibly help in some way is to present this before the God that he believes in. And so when a person begins to understand that, you don't see it as a double standard. What you see it as an expression of the truths this individual holds, in the same way that I would expect from a Muslim or from anyone else I engage with, in the various expressions that may be unique to their belief set or cultural or societal standards of which they were brought up in.
I did understand, of course, when the guy is offering a prayer, I understand that he's only showing that he has compassion for my daughter. I respect that. I understand. That's why I don't jump into him with ridicule and criticism. However, as I said, in a separate topic, when I, as a scientist, make a proposal based on exactly the same criteria that religious people use to base their claims, when I do the same thing, I'm called a fraud. And they're not. They're doing the same thing I am, but they are revealing truth. And I am exposed as a liar for doing the same thing the same way. That's a double standard.
Once again, I can agree with what you're saying in theory, but not in practice, Jack, because the value that you claim to hold, that you seek tolerance for people of all different faiths, I think that ultimately that is an admirable value. I think it is a virtue. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no basis in your scripture for that belief, so I don't know where you're getting it from, if not from there. The Old and New Testament say, put no gods before me, don't build idols, which are instrumental in some religions. Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life, everyone else is going to boil in a lake of fire and lava. There's not a single word in favor in the entire Bible, or any of the spin-off, books, written on it, the sort of theologians' collected works. There's nothing in there about being tolerant of other people's beliefs. It's all about persecute, kill, and demolish. That's the consistent theme throughout. So this is one of the many areas, like we're talking about before, moderate to liberal religious people are often decent people. They have their own value system, which I can, for the most part, agree with. But I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that they never actually go back and read their book and find out how wrong they are and start acting the way the scripture actually wanted them to act, which is like a bunch of jerks.
I strongly disagree. When you look throughout the New Testament, and I want to change this word of tolerance because I haven't been using that word. Rather, what I'm talking about is the reality of engaging with people of various beliefs and opinions. And one thing the New Testament maintains very strongly is that Christians, first of all, are to be thought of well by outsiders. The scriptures tell us that very clearly. In addition to that, Christ does encourage followers of his to love their enemies, pray for those who persecute them, to go the extra mile in terms of how you engage with them. The New Testament does not present this notion of, hey, treat outsiders like crap. No, quite the contrary. What it says is, in your lives, yes, as Christians, here's a set of beliefs that we have that relate to us in the framework of Christianity. To those outside of this belief system, we are to treat them with love and compassion in hopes that in some way we might exemplify to them the truths of Christ. So if that's what you call tolerance, so be it. But the New Testament...
But in a way, Jack, that goes back to the question that I asked you earlier about what was your purpose or hope when you engage in such conversations. And part of it, I expected you to say earlier that it was to effectively try and convert people. Now you've answered it again, and you have actually included that aspect of it. And I think that is what people get concerned about, because at that point it is no longer just your personal beliefs that you are holding. You are trying to impose them onto other people. Would that be fair?
No, because I never said, and I think it's an important part of establishing these relationships with people is really listening closely to the language they use and not imposing on them our own usage of language. For example, I never used the word tolerance. I never used the word convert. And so what I did use was exemplify Christ to them. In other words, see, I'm not out to, but the focus is not, can I convert the person? The focus begins with me as a follower of Christ, and how is it that I exemplify the truths of Christ in my own life? And as such, living these out for others, not so that they feel like I'm trying to convert them, as much as this is who I am, and you can either respond to that in some way, or you cannot. But beyond all else, I want you to know that I do care for you as a person. I do love you. Even if you never know that I'm a Christian at all, as long as you can understand that, then as a Christian, I am doing what I believe Christ has called us to do.
But Jack, I can do that as well, and I was going to make the distinction. There is a difference between respecting someone as a human being and respecting their rights. There's a difference between that and respecting their the views and beliefs that they hold. I respect you as an individual, as a human being. I would respect your rights. I would defend your rights, but I can't have respect for your beliefs. Almighty.
Well, that's the thing, is there is things about being nice in general, but there's nothing about showing respect for another belief system. Not one word.
In terms of showing respect for other people's beliefs, once again, it's what I'm getting at is it's a matter of how we live our lives. In other words, we can all sit around and talk about tolerance and respect. What I want to know is, how do we actually engage with people of whom we hold opposing views with? The 5 years I've been on YouTube talking with people, I've striven to engage with people in ways that are courteous and meaningful. Regardless of whether or not I have what you call tolerance or respect, the fact is I engage in a way that is meaningful and courteous. And I think this is very important.
Okay, Jack. Now I have to say, I had a brief discussion with you the other day, and I thought you were, first of all, I don't think you're courteous, and I certainly think you were not meaningful. My experience with you, and I think many people share this, is you're very civil and eloquent at first, but at some point you get frustrated, and then the Jack that we're talking to now leaves the room, and he's replaced by another Jack who is an inane, vacuous, and I'm sorry, I'm really not just trying to put you down, but there's no other word for it, an inane, vacuous asshole. Okay?
And to some degree, I have to agree with that. That was the same experience that I had. And I have a question about that, because you say that when you enter into these conversations that you want to be courteous and all of this. You want to be everything that I already am also. Okay, so we both come to the same thing for the same reason. And then you want to pursue this thing where you have, where you want to achieve this level of respect. You want people to understand that you have compassion for them, and so do I. So what differentiates us then is that you have a external motivation, that this being that you are trying to be this Christian person, and I don't have that external motivation. So where is the value in the Christian thing? Why couldn't you just drop it? for example. I mean, when you say you want to follow Christ, so here's the example that I think of when I think of Christ. I think of the guy that said that he was going to crush all the sinners in his bloody winepress, and the only way to get to heaven is through him, and if you don't believe in him, if you don't accept that he is God, whatever, then he's going to kill you and torture you, punish you mercilessly forever without stop, without forgiveness. Why? Because you were not gullible enough to believe somebody that had no credibility when they said something outrageous, when they didn't have any evidence to support it, and it didn't make any sense. That's when God is going to punish you forever. And that's why I have a problem with this. I mean, you want to be a nice guy, and you say it's because you're Christian. No! You're a nice guy because you're a nice guy. That's it. And then when you try to defend a Christian, that's when you become an asshole.
I wasn't actually, when I entered the conversation, I wasn't trying to establish. First of all, can I be an asshole? Yes, of course I can. And I admit that there have been plenty of occasions in which I have been one. All right? And the fact is, it is very difficult, obviously, when talking to people of opposing views. What I'm trying to establish is that I strive to do it. I strive to always have an atmosphere in which such a conversation is welcome. Do I do it perfectly? Of course I don't. And the fact is, though, it is something, like I mentioned earlier, that occurs over time. In other words, I strive for civility. I strive to have meaningful. I'm not saying that I have this in exclusion to you because you're an atheist. I've never at any point in this conversation attempted to say that. What I've attempted to say is in response to questions you've had about me. Do you think that I'm a pretentious asshole that doesn't say meaningful things from time to time? That's fine. But I strive not to be. And like I said, I don't do it perfectly, but the door is always open. And I do on Blog TV. I strive to make it always open. Aaron Raw, you and I have never had a one-on-one conversation. And, you know, admittedly, I think it's fair that we strive to understand the context in which we have had conversations, which, if you understood from my perspective, is not the easiest, right? So I just don't think you're being entirely fair here. Atheism, we had one conversation. Admittedly, in one conversation, it wasn't the best thing that we could have possibly had, but I felt like it did get to a place that I thought could have been a meaningful